Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm very impressed because I think it is the first time I see so many, well, there is no one seat left and there is people standing, and I'm very, very happy that we are able to gather all of you. I'm Olivier Mellet-Hardiman, Director of the Clark Art Institute, and I'm thanking you for coming this afternoon for the last public program related to our exhibition, War Power, Modern French Tapestry from the Mobilier National, which closes tomorrow. Yeah. I saw friends, I think it was Thursday, I went to see the exhibition again, and there was a friend, and I said, but I saw you not so long ago in the exhibition. She said, yes, it is the 12th time I'm coming. Those of you know that those who have seen the exhibition, the creation of successful tapestry depends on several things. It starts with the vision of an artist who creates the design. That design must be interpreted and translated in master weavers who spend their entire lives learning and perfecting the highly specialized and technically challenging art of weaving tapestry. We are very fortunate today to have with us the artist who designed the most recent tapestry in the exhibition, a monumental vision of apocalyptic nature designed by Kiki Smith. Kiki Smith has been known since the 1980s for her multidisciplinary work that explores embodiment and the natural world. She uses a broad variety of materials to continuously expand and evolve a body of work that includes sculpture, printmaking, photography, drawing, and tapestry. Smith has been the subject of numerous solo exhibitions worldwide, including over 25 museum exhibitions. Her work has been featured at 5 Venice Biennale, including the 2017 edition. She's a member of the American Academy of Art and Letters and the American Academy of Art and Science, and in 2017 was awarded the title of Honorary Royal Academician by the Royal Academy of Art in London. Among other awards and recognition, she received the Shawinigan Medal for Sculpture in 2000. She was recognized by Time magazine in 2006 as one of the 100 people who shaped our world. In 2009, she was awarded the Edward McDowell Medal. In 2000, it's a long list, be ready. And in 2010, the Nelson A. Rockefeller Award for the Purchase School of the Arts. In 2013, Hillary Clinton conferred upon Kiki the US Department of State Medal of the Arts. And in 2016, she was recognized by the Lifetime Achievement Award from the International Sculpture Center, among other honors. Most recently, and closer to my heart, just last month, Kiki Smith was awarded the insignia of the Officier of des Arts et Lettres by the French Ministry of Culture at the ceremony at the Villa Albertine in New York. In addition to being a prolific artist, she acts also as an adjunct professor at NYU and Columbia University. Today, she's joined in conversation with the curator of the War Power exhibition, Kathleen Morris, who is Director of Collection and Exhibition and Curator of Decorative Art here at the Clark. Please help me to welcome Kiki Smith and Kathleen Morris to the stage where they will discuss Kiki's career.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to echo Olivier's thanks to Kiki for joining us this afternoon and for sharing with us some thoughts about her career and the various media in which she's worked, including tapestry. And later on in the program, we'll talk specifically about the tapestry that's included in the War Power exhibition. But to start, Kiki, I know that you brought a number of slides that show a little bit of the evolution of some of the motifs that you've been most interested in. So maybe you could start by just starting to walk through some of the images we have, and I might interrupt you from time to time.
Yes, thank you very much for coming. I wanted to show, something like, I don't know if it's the evolution or migration of images from one time to another, and just not in any, they're not actually, they're in lumps, but they're not in any chronological order or anything. But this was when I made things about bodies and stuff, and by the early 90s, a lot of echo, by the early 90s, I went to, I guess in 93, I went to Alfred University, where a janitor there had a large collection of birds, dead birds that he had found, and he gave me permission to draw them. I was making etchings, and then I moved right after that to Mass College of Art and did a residency, and I went to the Peabody Museum, and I had this idea that I wanted to make all the animals in the Bible, like in the Noah's Ark or something. But then I thought about the whales, and I got over it really quick because I'm not a very energetic person. But I went to the Peabody, and I would bring Arches cover paper and draw animals in section. You know, like just as much as I could fit on one piece of paper, and then I'd go to the next piece of paper and the next, and then I took those back to Mass College of Art and transferred them onto onto acetates. And the first were shot as etchings, photo etchings, and then we started doing more lithographic printing. And the students made all of these prints for me. And so there was just animals that were big enough for, I just bring a little chair and a piece of paper and a board. But out of that time at Peabody Museum, the woman there that was the scientist was saying that there would be this loss of animals in the world, primarily because of habitat loss, over the next 50 years. And the statistics were, remarkably high, as we've seen in the last years. But I just started using, so I kind of thought, who cares about people then? This is more important, this is more important for me to think about in some way. But anyway, I just made these images. And then since then, I'm just using those images over and over again. This started with the wolf, the girl with the wolf, because for a while I just was making animals, and then I thought, fairy tales was this place where animals and humans intersect in this sort of psychic way, and in our attachment to animals and stuff. And so I started making these images. And then a lot of the things I've made come from making prints first, or making drawing first, and then going into three-dimensional things, and nothing. So this was taking that wolf, the drawing of the wolf, and then we made it into a sculpture. And I made it first with the wolf with a glove of Little Red Riding Hood in her hand, and then I was making these prints. I had that same wolf drawing, but then I added a friend of mine. It was about Saint Geneviève and saving France, saving Paris with the wolf and the lamb. And so I used this friend of mine, Geneviève, and so I made all these drawings of her with the wolf. And it was the same thing, like just taking one static drawing and chopping it up and reconfiguring it. And then I made it a sculpture of her with the wolf. And I made one wolf with the tongue wagging that I liked, but it was only if you touched it, you would know. And then I made, from the drawings, from making collages, then I started making these sculptures. And so that's the same wolf as the standing wolf, but just turned upside down and opened up and reconfigured. And then the same as the woman, I just make people standing stiff, and then I could animate them and make them move. But maybe that's, oh, and then these were ones. But, like I'm not, and then that's the same, using that same print of the wolf, scratching it into clay and then casting it. But, and then later this was a tapestry made, a jacquard tapestry, not Gobelin. And then this is, I guess, the last one I did. But, my father was the sculptor Tony Smith, and we as children made a lot of his models for him, and American Paper Company invited him or supported him in Osaka in the World's Fair, and he made a very big, thing called a bat cave, but it was made from octahedrons and tetrahedrons. And so my sisters and I would sit after school putting octahedrons and tetrahedrons together forever. And then we would tape them, and he would sit and go, do that, do that, do that. And I realized that I work in the same way, in a way, but with images. That I just take images, like I get something in my head, or this is another one of these drawings I made in 1994. And then I just start, I don't even start doing anything. I always say I'm like a plant, kind of, for the most part. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just, I just sometimes something hits me on the head, like Crazy Cat and Ignaz, to do something. And so I do it. But, these were using that same deer image, like making it three-dimensional, and the same woman. Oh, yeah. And then I made drawings, lithographs, and all these lithographs I made at Columbia University with students. And so I'd make drawings like that, and then I think, oh, I could make a sculpture like that. Oh, and it goes too fast. So it's like that. And then that same deer, I was asked by Magnolia Editions in Oakland, California, if I want to make jacquard tapestries. And so I used the same images. I made everything from bits of, like leftover bits of prints and things like that, and then I painted in the reeds and things, but the rest was all just collaged. And then, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago during the pandemic, I was asked by the MTA in New York to make 5 mosaics for Madison, Grand Central Madison North. And these are like 10 stories underground. It was for the Long Island Railroad coming into New York. So I wanted to make it that it was a little friendly looking and happy. Because really you're like 10 stories underground. That freaks me out. But the relationship is working with mosaicists and working on the tapestry, both things, someone else is manifesting it. Like I made this drawing, this collage, whatever, to begin with, at a 3rd scale. This is about 24 feet long or something. And I made it at a 3rd scale, and then we printed it out, and the actual size. And then mosaicists, who are mostly Italian mosaicists who had studied, working in Germany and Munich, they do it. They just start making it, and it's very much similar to the tapestry. So all of these things are just things that I made in 1994, and then kept like tracing the bird and turning it into 3-dimensional thing. To me, it's something very interesting to go from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions and back and forth, or that you can then animate them, just by cutting paper or cutting sculpture or something. You can keep animating and having them have different lives. So then this is another tapestry. Yeah, I think I just made like 4 little sections of these. That's an old owl from Alfred University, and then this is I made a lot of sculptures like this first, and then the tapestry, and then a print, and then wood that then I can make rubbings from, and that's like that. And this is, that's a tapestry. But like that man was originally a pietà in a big stained glass thing I made, installation, but it was just this, the little part at the bottom with the water, then that I took out and made it into this large mosaic for the train station. And, okay, and then this is sort of gets to here. These were from, I made a film of the East River, like, I don't know, about 15 years ago. I used to walk on the East River every day to go swimming at the public swimming pool, and there'd be, you know, lights, the sunlight glistening on the East River, and so I'd make films of that all the time, and then I took the films and made them into cyanotypes. I redrew them on plexi. I teach printmaking, so we were teaching cyanotype, and I wanted them to make things themselves rather than take things off the computer. But so I made them into cyanotypes, then I made those into flags for a reason, and then that was made into another one, and then here, yeah, here. So the same, this I made a little book with a wonderful poet, Meme Bersenbrugge, and she lives in Maine, so I just was making my pretend versions of Maine or something. And then I took those images and the images that this comes from and made it into one of the mosaics. But I made this during school because when I've taught etching for about, I don't know, 20 something years, 25 years or something like that. And first I would like read books on the way to class because I had no idea. I made etchings, but I had no idea how to teach it. And I never studied it. And then I would call up the etchers I worked with. But then after a while I knew a little bit. And then each time I teach with a friend, Valerie Hammond, and we each get a plate from the school, and so I chop it up and I make prints. And I try to always make something that I've really no idea what I'm doing, because otherwise it's really boring if you just teach the same thing, you know, by rote over and over. You have to keep discovering what you could learn and what's interesting, you know, that you don't know and that they don't know. And so this was just, I was just putting the ground on the plate going like that. And then I thought, oh, they look like clouds, you know, and then I made these landscapes or seascapes like this with paper towel, soft ground, and, you know, like really funky as possible, and then hand colored them all. And then see, these clouds are in that one. Oh, this whole thing is in that one, actually. Oh, sorry. I thought I'd taken the top of one and put it in the other. Anyway, it got moved around in different, because then we worked with, you know, the computer and made the layout, but sort of, and then now it's the tapestry, which they had to work on for 7 years, which, which is embarrassing.
So maybe we should pause here for just a minute and talk a little bit about, you know, I know you have just such an interest in working with people who have deep knowledge of their craft, whether it's mosaic or tapestry or glass making, and it must be very different to think about a hand-woven tapestry versus a machine-woven tapestry. But even that, I'm sure, is a very collaborative process.
I think the thing to me with all of them that, I mean, when I was making the mosaics for the MTA. I went the first night I was working in Meyer in this workshop in Munich. I started having a complete panic attack. And I told the woman I was going to die that night. And she sort of looked at me and goes, like, "You're not dying. You're having a panic attack." As I realized it was this thing of giving it, like giving something over to other people to do it, to make an interpretation. And they're like professional people that make interpretations. And you can't, I mean, like you would go insane to sit and watch this thing be made. And you would go insane to watch mosaics being made. I mean, it's really a slow process. And, you know, and it takes, I mean, this, I don't know how many weavers, but it's a long piece. So, you know, it's probably that long. So you have people working in section. And the whole thing is coming slowly down and being rolled up. And then nobody saw it for 7 years. You know, so it's really, so within that time, I mean, the women at the Gobelin, it was like a system of like a convent. I mean, there were people that still lived there, men and women. I think both worked on things, but it was mostly traditionally like women lived their like convent life and just wove their entire lives. And I was very happy because there was another artist that was taking 16 years to weave one. And, you know, because to me, I felt very ashamed that they would be spending 7 years on something like, because I had made all the other tapestries for Magnolia, and I wanted to make something very distinct from that, because those were jacquard, and those we collage things, and we worked in computer, then they would send me images and I would paint and work on it. And this, I thought, I have to have something that is separate from that. I can't be repeating that and reproducing it. And,
so what led you to choose this particular motif to be woven into a gigantic tapestry, particularly given that the prints that you made are like this big?
Yeah, they're like just foolishness, probably. But I don't know. It was mostly this. I didn't want to be repeating the fussiness. And also in the jacquard, the man we were working with built a loom in Belgium that was two-headed. And so they could have twice as much detail and, you know, fineness of weave. And I didn't want to, yeah, I wanted something very separate. And then also, I think as I said before, that I was, one of the first times I really wanted to do something in my life, like where I thought this is something I really want. I went to Angers in France to see the apocalyptic tapestries. And if any of you get the chance, that's one of the best things in the whole wide world. And my sister lives in France, Seaton. She's an artist, and she lives half the year there for the last 40 years. And so my mother and I, we went there, and then we went to Chartres, and then we went to Angers to see these tapestries. And they're so unbelievably spectacular. I don't know if there's about 70 now, or not, maybe 90 or 70, something in there. There were more, you know, from the 1300s on a bit. And they're about the apocalypse, and they're so incredibly economical in the amount of color they use. It's a very reduced palette, but out of that they are just the most moving things I ever saw, practically. And so I wanted to make something that was simple. Also, for me, sometimes when I think I'm making something simple, it turns out to be a nightmare for other people. Like one of the MTA ones, I tried to make it just a seascape with like a bird flying, and like I was going to have one of these rocks in it, but then I said, no, it's too busy, just make it really simple for them. And then that turned out to be an absolute nightmare for them, because there was nothing for them to hold on to, kind of. Whereas they're really making it pretty true to what I gave them, which I was very shocked at. I told you when I saw it, because I had no idea it would be so graphic and so bright. And they made the weaving of the rock at a much coarser, like more open weave, heavier, like skipping, so it's much more bold and physical. You know, and the same with the tapestries, I mean, with the mosaics. It's just very, you know, like I'm somebody used to just, you know, making little things like, you know, the size of about a bread box on my kitchen table. So this scale is also, you know, something that's way out of my realm.
Well, you've already mentioned that between the time that this was commissioned from you and the time that it came off of the loom, and it was 7 years had passed. And as you also mentioned, as the weavers are weaving, the tapestry is being rolled under, so nobody sees it until it comes off the loom. And you didn't see it until you came for the opening of the show. So I'm also curious if you could tell us a little bit about what is that experience like? You know, you have an idea, I'm sure, in your mind of what it's going to be like, but then when you see it in reality, and between then and now, has your
not the good part of the story.
Has your thinking changed about it too?
Yes. No, when I started working at the Gobelin, I worked with a woman who I had very good affinity with, and she was very, very knowledgeable in tapestries, and she'd worked there for years. And when we went to the Louvre and looked at tapestries and everything, was great. And then all of a sudden, I'd never heard from her again or anybody else. And you know, to me, it's like I call up the bank and the person doesn't work there anymore, and they didn't bother to tell you that you've talked to them for 10 years and they've just gone to some other department or something. It's like the world disappears. And for me, those relationships are extremely important. You know, in printmaking or in everything I've done, it's been partially for me the greatest joy of my life is working with people, and certainly working with people that know more than I do. So I had no contact till like about 2 weeks before they were cutting it, and they make a ceremony, you know, where they cut it off the loom after 7 years. And I didn't go because I was so mad that nobody has talked to me for 7 years. And also because I thought, oh, you can't just go to France, you know, fly to France to watch something, which is like stupid on my part. But it's why I got to receive my medal in New York, because that never occurred to me to go to France. You know, I thought, but the other thing that I came, so it was very shocking to me to come see it, and I was very uncomfortable, and it's only Kathy and others that sort of talked me down and made me appreciate it, because I thought, oh, it's too bright, it's too black and white, it's too bright. The original is a little softer, and you know, it's too noticeable. Like, you know, like I go around mostly in black, like trying not to be noticed, and then taking up way too much space. but you know, like, so I was really shocked, like I'm going to be seen making something so colorful like that. What does that mean, or something? But you know, then and because it's also a collaboration, you can maybe have slightly distance from it or something like that. But you know, I was very happy when I went to see it today, and it is bolder. It's more like when I was young, I made things much more bold or something, and you know, it was very nice to see. But it took me a while to kind of wrap my head around it. But also with other things, we're to take ownership of something that's not in your hand. You know, like I've done a lot of glass work, and I had to always, when I did, you know, had to ask glass blowers to make things, I tried to make things that were very neutral, because otherwise I thought, I can't, they're not mine. And I made a very, very large, like maybe 40 feet around or 30 feet around glass menagerie with a great glass blower from Venice named Pino Signoretto. And he made all of these large menagerie about this big, all the animals of the northern hemisphere constellations. But I never could take ownership of it in a way, because I always said that's his. I mean, it was my idea to do it, and it was like the configuration and everything. But I always had to say that's he made those pieces because it could never be in my hand. It always was in his hand because he was a master, one of the top 2 best people in Europe at the time. So it's a funny thing to.
I know there's a great quote from earlier in this century about the collaboration between, or the sort of roles of the artist and the weavers in making a tapestry. And it goes something like the fact that without a great design by an artist, there can't be a great tapestry. And without the skills of the weavers, there can't be a great tapestry. So those 2 things have to go together. But in some ways, they're independent. But in the end, what we're looking at is
It's a collaboration.
Yeah.
I mean, you have it the same in most stained glass. Is usually being painted by someone who didn't design it. You have it in engraving, and only pretty much the last century people are making. I mean, there is a history of people making prints, but for the most part, like Turner made, 1,000-something prints under his name, but and he made very few of them. They're mostly done by professional engravers. So, and my father never made his sculpture. He said the only time he ever touched it is when the photographer asked him to put his hand on it. Like he just made a plan, sent it to the, industrial welding in Newark, New Jersey, and it would come back, the size of the screen. But he never did it, and it wasn't conceptually. It wasn't necessary. It depends how necessary you have in yourself to have that experience. But things like this, or glass blowing, or weaving, there are a million things like that that are just beyond my pay grade. I would never have the patience for it. But I also don't have the knowledge and the skill. But also for me, when I saw the apocalyptic tapestries, it never, like I love them, but I never thought in my lifetime I would have that opportunity to make one. But also when I was there, Jean Lessat, he made sort of an answer print to the apocalyptic tapestries. And they were so out there and strange to me, and really challenging. And now, like when you see his tapestries here, and then all of the people that were somehow associated to him, which, they made such an enormous, large language and kept tapestry alive. I mean, whereas now also because of jacquard looms, being able to be married with a computer, and many people have made very large jacquard tapestries. Someone was talking about Cuba, Carlos Garaycoa, and just many artists all over the world. And William Kendrick made Gobelin, but in Australia, I think big black and white ones and stuff. And so the technology changing. I mean, the technology didn't change. It's like women are sitting, like there's a window here, and then they're sitting here, and then there's like, a mile of space that they have to fill up. And it's just getting rolled, and they're sitting away from the window, but the light is hitting of the cartoon that's behind the threads, and then they're weaving away.
Let's change to the next slide, because one of the things that the Mobilier National did for the Clark is they sent us this sample weaving, which is a weaving that the weavers made when they were first thinking about weaving your tapestry. And they do this for every tapestry that they make, because one of the things the weavers have to figure out is how to create the visual effects that are being called for by the design. And so on this, it's kind of a crazy patchwork, but you can see that they're working on different ways of, like, different stitches, different densities of stitch. They're working on the colors and the color combination. And then, as you were mentioning, this very bulky way of stitching the rocks to create what is, if you look at the tapestry, actually in this exhibition, it's the only tapestry that has such a difference in technique between one part of it and the other. And I find that really interesting. I think something about your design called to them to create a rock that had its own being.
Well, the rock part, I made in the print, I made by Bounty paper towels, because that's our favorite brand in the print shop. We make the students buy it. But I just put them on soft ground. So I had all this there was like that, all this pattern of this puffy paper towels or something that were very, ridiculous looking. But I think they really copied that in a way. And, even if I saw this, I would never have any, for me, a clue of anything of how it would come out at all. But, now, and actually upstairs I was saying it's very beautiful light because it looks very purple now.
Blacks look very purple.
Yeah, but it like today I really appreciated all the like how I made it more graphic because in the computer I changed, I brought the contrasts up or something like that. And so it really made it much more graphic. But for me today, it was good to see that.
There's just another view of the sample weaving that they sent, which gives you a really good sense of what they're doing with the weaving of what will become the rocks in the final tapestry. And then I also turned it over.
Yeah.
Here's the back.
That's the best on all these.
And so this is interesting to me too, because the backs of tapestries people don't see, but I've come to realize that even without seeing it, it can have a kind of an impact on how you experience it. It's like a shag rug or something.
But also the black parts are very fine. The weave, because here you can see in medieval and early Renaissance tapestries, you can change one thread, one piece of yarn to the next. You can have endless quantity. If you think of like the unicorn tapestries in that cycle or something, there's just endless detail. And you feel that in all the tapestries. The tapestry just across from me from 1981, I forget the artist.
The Gerard Schlosser?
Yeah. That's very fine and very flat and very delicate, the color. But in the black of this, it's also very nicely done.
I think there's actually quite a lot of different blacks when
Yeah.
you say black. Here's the tapestry as it's hung in the exhibition. And there's something about it to me that I thought about this. First of all, when we were installing this exhibition, I had been looking at these images and thinking about them, and I wrote a book about them, but it was not until we unrolled them as physical objects that you can really appreciate the object itself. And they're so big, it's, you can't just walk into a storeroom and ask to, unroll that tapestry for me. So most of these I had not seen in person, and yours was so recently woven. But when we unrolled the 7 Seas, we were all struck by how heavy it is. It is by far the weightiest tapestry in the exhibition. It weighs a ton. And it also, it occurred to me later, it was like, why would they leave so much on the back of the tapestry when no one's going to see it? And here you can see 2 views of the back of the tapestry. Again, these are really expressive threads that have been left behind. But in some ways, I think that weight from the front, you feel the sort of, I don't know, the heaviness of the object. It gives it a real gravitas.
No, it's fair. There you have the one tapestry where you have that little window in the exhibition where you can see the back. And I thought, oh, everything should be seen from the back. Because when you do jacquard looms, it's very ugly from the back. It's just sort of brown, and then you see some color, but you don't see any image. It's all, there's nothing to look, and it's very flat. But the other thing, when I was looking at that, I realized that since this image, when I made that I made a sculpture of that rock too. I made sculptures of that same, I'd never thought about that, but I made the same shape as like little mountains with animals and stuff. I mean, it's just, to me, that's what's funny. It's just how things just mutate and keep spinning and spinning and turning into other things. And
so for me, I think in terms of when I was thinking about this tapestry and the title that you gave this whole series, The Seven Seas, it really did seem to me to have some kind of evocation of apocalyptic nature, but also in some ways a little bit of anthropomorphizing the rock, thinking of the rock almost as a sort of a human hero. But I don't know how you thought of it. You've used these, as you say, you've just made a sculpture with the rock. We saw the similar kinds of motifs in some of those earlier, more pastel-colored works that you did. Is this like a primordial battle of nature? And what does the seven seas mean for you?
I don't know. I don't know anything. I'm like, I just do things out of, partially out of impulse, or, these just because I was trying to not fall asleep teaching printmaking. But, but then I spend months afterward, then everything has to be printed, you have to paint everything, you have to, you end up spending months and months doing things. But I was telling, when we were coming over here yesterday, I was thinking, what am I going to say? And I thought, I'm like a plant. I'm just sort of like a plant. It's like I don't, I used to think of myself like a wind, but now I think, oh, maybe I'm more like a plant. Like I'm just there. And, but then we were listening to Terence McKenna, and he said that animals were created by plants to carry the seeds. So I thought that was such a nice idea yesterday to think about, but that, I don't think about what I'm doing. I mean, sometimes like my earlier work, I could see how it related personally to my life. I was trying to like figure out something in my life or something, but, since this time, I just do what occurred to me to do, and then it just takes me some other place, and that's unexpected. And to me, I always think it's just like turning rocks over or showing like facets of a whole, like a gemstone, like that you're just looking at one facet at a time. And I don't know why I did. I made the prints, and then I wanted to make a book with Mei. And then it just turns into something, a tapestry. I don't know why. I don't know why, and I don't have a big agenda for anything. I have less and less and less. It just than I had when I was young. But I trust, I feel like if you're an artist, you're given. You can be willful, but you can also be given information, and if you pay attention to it, and follow it, like that, it's a good thing as an artist to follow what you're given, and have just have total trust in that as much as possible.
Well, we only have a few more slides. I have just a few installation photos of the exhibition, because I know that I think a lot of the art in this exhibition, and this is one of those post-war things, this is by Jean-Picard Ledoux, who was working with Jean Lursa and the other artists. And they're not really well known at this point, at least not in the United States. And I just wondered if you took any inspiration from these earlier tapestries as well.
I would love to. Unfortunately, I don't seem to be able to learn things, but I would love that it would it's the same like the apocalyptic tapestries. I would love that there was some evidence of that in me and in what I do. And I would love that when I saw Jean Lursa's work, and then I was with my mother think, and then we went to the Miro Museum, and then Sotheby's or something asked me to give a talk about Picasso prints once that I knew like zero about, but it didn't stop me. And, you know, I was so confused by them. And then I made a sort of ridiculous talk about, I mean, they wanted me to say, like, as a woman, I didn't approve of Picasso's life. And I thought, no one would approve of mine either. But, but I was, you know, but I talked about Picasso and these guys sort of making this aesthetic that then to me became trickled down somehow into hippie life or something like that. Like, it's so confusing to me how they make these images and what the fancifulness or expressionistic aspects of them, where does it come from? Like, I don't understand where it comes from culturally. I don't understand. And I have no idea how they made these images. I mean, yeah, I just don't, you know, like I always, for my work, I mean, I'm from New Jersey. I'm not really from New England, but I always thought, I want my work like a gravestone, like a New England gravestone, like to be quiet and in the shadow and just be plain. And so all of the, like, color is totally confusing to me. You know, most of the work I did where just the color was the material of the material, you know, like very sort of 70s and stuff. But I actually love painting and making watercolors and things, and that's why I started doing the jacquard tapestry, because it enabled me to make color. It gave me a reason to use color, because I thought tapestries have color. But no, I wish this would all come and influencing me in a much more overt manner, because I love them.
Sometimes it's good just to appreciate the richness of the colors, and this is a very colorful show, but it reminds me that, you know, I think that you gave the weavers a kind of an entree into color because you hand colored the rock in the tapestry, and they kind of took it and ran with it. But it ended up being, I think, really one of the strongest tapestries in the exhibition.
Thank you.
So I think we want to give the audience time for questions, unless there's anything else you want to comment on before we turn it over to question and answer.
No, just for me, I'm very privileged to be in this exhibition. I was very privileged by the Gobelin to give me the opportunity, and also because it made me realize when I received this medal recently, you know, it was for that France had given me tremendous opportunities in my life that it never occurred to. I didn't think about. I don't think about anything. I didn't think about that either. Like, why somebody from the Gobelin wanted me to make a tapestry, I have zero idea of why they ever thought that that'd be a good idea. But I got to work with Gallimard, the publishers in France, and I've had all these opportunities in France that everyone has to count their blessings because it's how things happen in your life is so unprescribed and unimaginable that, and as an artist, being given opportunities to have an experience there's nothing greater than that.
Well, have felt so privileged to have your tapestry here. It was, I don't know if I told you this at the time that the show opened, but when I was working on the checklist for this exhibition, I didn't know that this tapestry existed because it had just been finished. And they hadn't even photographed it or put it on their website. I just did not know it existed. So I was talking to the chief curator there and saying, you know, I need a contemporary, you know, very contemporary, large, strong work. And she was like, oh, well, we just happen to have a brand new tapestry by Kiki Smith. Might you be interested? And here it is. And again, it's just been a great privilege to have it on our walls.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We would love to open it up to the audience. If you have questions for Kiki, please raise your hand. We have a microphone.
This is a two-part question. First, how was the decision made to go to the particular size that was chosen for this tapestry? And the second part of the question is, when you've gone from small to large a few times for the mosaics and for the tapestries, do you make changes in the design, knowing that when you go from something small to something large, things change?
I have no idea why it was this size. I have no idea. I have no idea who, I didn't make that decision. I think they, and maybe that was the size of the loom that they had there, or something, you know, that they could have there, and they wanted to make something big. I think I know it more in sculpture, that when you enlarge something, it changes radically, and you really can see proportions and things that are wrong by making things larger, and also by making things smaller. It's much better to make things smaller than larger, because it just tightens up everything in a good, like make jewelry instead of big things. But I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I always like tell my students endlessly that etching is a physical process. You know, it's a physical thing like a sculpture, and you can blow it up the size of this wall. Like if you make a pencil drawing and you blow it up the size of the wall, it will totally be like outer space. Whereas etching, because it's this, you know, cut line into the copper, that it will hold its integrity. And so in my mind, I always think that, but I don't, you know, that I don't worry about it getting bigger or something like that in that sense, but I don't know. I don't know.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to hear you speak. I'm wondering, when you're in different media, how do different techniques sort of leave traces on the way you perceive the world? For instance,
How does what?
how do different media or different techniques, such as etching, leave traces on the way you perceive the world? For instance, like, do you perceive colors in layers when you're working in a certain technique?
Not so much, because I'm still slowly dipping my toes into. I mean, that's one thing. Actually, the thing that I love about etching is that you realize that reality is constructed. Like what you're seeing is like etching is like a perfect model for the last, you know, the 20th century and sort of ideas of deconstruction or something, because you realize that there's nothing there and nothing there and nothing there and nothing there, and you put them together and it makes this illusion of something, but it's all just nothing, you know, it's just nothing, just little dots or something like that, but of color. But for me, the real thing is that is the thing about taking one little aspect of something and transforming it. Like I made drawings of bloody doves earlier this year, a whole lot of them, and I was layering them, and then I made an animation of them. But then I took them and I brought them to the Xerox place and blew it up very large. And then with a lot of the sculpture I do, I just draw the drawing into clay and then cover it with wax and then pull it off and then cast that. So I make like very low reliefs. But then, you know, I can take that and then so now I have these big doves, sort of crashed doves in bronze, but I can also take the waxes from that, from the molds from that, and then start using just that material to build other things, to construct other things. And to me, it's just that. It's just like making something that tumbles and tumbles and tumbles, that, and can go, you know, can be like jewelry, or most of my prints, I think one of these prints too, I made into scarves. You know, I just like that things get to have different lives. You know, like I like to have different lives, and I like that things can have different lives, or an image can have all different lives over and over and over again, and get mixed up with each other. You know, in not necessarily more and more convoluted ways or more clear ways. They just get mixed up.
Hold on.
Can you
Just microphone.
Hello, could you just put the image of the tapestry back so that if we take a photograph, we get it? Thank you. That's all. I would like to have your
That
work
was
with
the
you in
easy
front
one.
of it.
That's good. Yes. Everybody can leave.
Are there any more questions for Kiki? There's one up in the balcony.
Oh, good.
What kind of logistical problems did you have? You got this exhibition, you had to put it onto the wall. That's a very, very heavy piece. Already mounted with some way to attach it to the wall.
So the question is, logistically, how challenging was it, and how did we mount these tapestries, including this very heavy tapestry to the wall? They're all mounted exactly the same way. They all come from the Mobilia Nacional. They have a process of preparing tapestries to be shown. And I should say the Mobilia Nacional does show these tapestries. They hang them in embassies and other French government buildings around the world. It's a very used collection. And the way that they're prepared to be shown is each one of them has a 2-inch strip of Velcro sewn across the top edge on the back. And there's a kind of a linen substrate there's always a way to sort of transfer the weight from the fibers themselves to a kind of a substrate that's going to hold that weight and take the pressure off of the actual work of art. So there's a big 2-inch piece of Velcro sewed across the very top of this tapestry and of all the tapestries. And then it's a very low-tech way but very effective way of installing. We prepared 2x4 boards that are the exact width of the tapestries, to which we stapled the other side of the Velcro. And then we drilled the 2x4 boards directly into the walls. And then I think most of these tapestries, and definitely this one, took 8 people. SJ, am I right? SJ was one of them, to install. So we had people on ladders and people on the floor, and then you just slowly go up the ladders and get to the elevation of the hanging, and then press it down all the way across the top. We were careful about it in every instance. It took a lot of coordination and teamwork, but it was not rocket science.
Oh, thank you. I'd have to have a new house. If I could have the house with it. No, I've made the jacquard ones, but I don't really like living with my work very much. I really like living with other artists' work and looking out the windows at the clouds and the birds. But my own, I like it for a while, or I feel very attached to it for a while. But then, and I have like from the jacquard, I have scraps, and I always think, oh, I'm going to cover a couch with those scraps, or oh, I'm going to do this with those. But I just put them away in the end. I don't really want to look at all of it. I'm happy if other people do, but I don't want to.
Hi. So that was an amazing talk. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask, you've talked a lot about your creative process as this intuitive process where you feel you're being given gifts and then it's your opportunity to follow them. And I was wondering if you have any advice for young artists on how to recognize when a gift is being given and how to be in tune with their intuition in that way.
Well, you just have to listen. Listen. No, I mean, my mother taught me to always follow your intuition and always listen. And I think that's all I've got. Otherwise, I'm completely lost. I have no, I just have no idea what I should be doing in life particularly. I mean, I've done all different kinds of things, but I did listen to it, and also to trust. Trust, my mother said, follow your inner voice or something. But to trust that, trust what you're given, and trust it really by all your heart, even when it's a disaster. I mean, I do things like, I've done lots of things in my life I'm completely embarrassed by, or I try to disassociate from, or I don't ever show those things, or, but it all was necessary. I mean, some artists, like I have friends like Charlie Ray, he's a really great artist, and he can make a piece here, and then like 5 years later, he makes another piece, and then he makes another piece, another 5 years, and it's really consequent. But me, I have to go make 15 billion trillion things in between, that crowd up the whole house. That's why I don't want to look at it, I suppose. But I need to do all those steps. And I've been very fortunate personally to have had so many experiences, and I feel very, very, very grateful in my life for having so many experiences with people and working with so many wonderful people. But it's also like I know someone who said they were studying and then they realized they would never be as good as Van Gogh. And I thought, like, I know that to begin with. like, why would that stop you? Like, who cares? Like, so what if if you're terrible? It's like, I draw terribly, I do a million things terrible, but I thought, that doesn't have to stop you. As artists, the stakes of what we're doing is really great in some ways, and in other ways, the stakes are very low. So you can really take a risk. It's not, you can just keep taking any risk that you can think, that presents itself to you. I would be careful with power tools and things like that. but you just follow your work. Like, just follow your work. And you don't have to believe in it or anything. You just follow it.
Thank you.
Okay, that's enough talking.
I'm taking a risk, like you just said. I don't have a question. This is a dream come true. You informed my artwork since I was in my BFA program. This is a bucket list thing for me to see. And I just wanted to say thank you. I'm a high school art teacher.
Oh, that's good.
It's the best. And getting kind of emotional. It's such a big deal to me. And I just wanted to say thank you so much.
Thank you.
I told my students that, my girl students, I said, this would be like you meeting Taylor Swift. And that maybe when you're all done, I brought your book that I read all the time when I was an undergrad and used as an influence.
Sure.
We have a question in the back. Yeah, you. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. You spoke about how when you were younger, you created work that was perhaps bolder or more directly related to your life. And it made me curious about how your philosophy towards creating has changed over time and perhaps why.
I don't think my philosophy changed. It's just my life got quieter. When I was in my 20s and stuff, was so tumultuous person and so endlessly uncomfortable with myself. But once you get through menopause, life is just a breeze. But even before that, it wasn't really till my 40s that I thought, oh, it's not about me. I can go pay attention to things that I'm actually interested in. Like that I've, found myself or whatever, or I've gotten used to myself, or I've put up with myself enough that I don't care anymore. I mean, that's the thing that's great about getting older. Like, you have to wait because it's so much more fun. Or for me, it's so much better being older. It's such a relief, from mostly probably from being poisoned by hormones, for half your life. But no, it just, things change in your life. And they change in beautiful, unexpected ways that you could never imagine. And, not that life is like peachy all the time and that it's not fraught with tons of pain and stuff like that, but just how you can live through it changes. And for me, it just, it was such a relief just to go like, oh, what do I actually like thinking about or looking at? Or, there's so much to learn about from the history of what people have made in the world and in all different cultures and all different times. And also, being an artist to have the opportunity to be part of an international, world of creativity and appreciate people from other places that are making things for reasons that you understand or don't understand, but you're sharing a language. And art is a great language because it can go in any direction. It's not fixed, and it's constantly being changed and reviving and rediscovering things like tapestry and things that people have known for, hundreds and thousands of years. So, I don't know. That's enough talking
Well,
now.
I feel like we've all just had a master class in not just art, but in life, perhaps. So please join me in thanking Kiki Smith for coming to us tonight.
Thank you.